So good evening, everyone. Welcome. So glad to have you all here. Yeah, we can do this. I still like doing this. I do. It's just, I remember the first time I saw that. I didn't know what it was. I gave somebody a present and they did this. And I wasn't sure if they were happy or upset. I mean, you know what I mean? You have to learn the meaning. Isn't that true with all symbols? So until you know what this means, it doesn't mean anything, does it? Now apply that to everything. Until you learned what something means or what it meant, you didn't give it any meaning. So it's kind of a paradox because meaning both can have meaning, can mean something, but it's also totally meaningless. Like this. So it can mean something, right? It means I bow to the soul within you that's within me. It's acknowledging the God presence there that's here. So it has a meaning, but it's meaningless. Right? Because until you learn the meaning, it didn't have any meaning. So its original, can we say this? Its original makeup was it had no meaning, just neutral. Let me let Diane in. It didn't mean good, it didn't mean bad, it literally didn't mean anything to you. It was as if it didn't exist. And so in a way, we could say that knowledge is accumulated meaning. Right? All my knowledge is all my meanings. What I think means something. So if we take away all meanings, what's left?
Just what is.
Yay, A+. Just what is. Just this. But here's the catch. There's always a catch. Don't you hate it? We don't know. Oh, let's let Joan in 1 second. We don't know what this is. And so what does the brain do? It gives it meaning. So that's the more meaning, the more comfortable. The more I know, the more secure, the more safe I feel. because I have all these meanings, and that's why I like meeting other people that have the same meanings in their belief structure as I do, because now we can agree in our meanings. But the freedom is not in any meaning. And in a way, you could say the freedom is all the meanings, in that they're all meaningless. I know that makes no sense. So I put a post up in Facebook in the non-duality community. Everything is as it is, right? Everything is as it is until I say otherwise. So a pain is just a pain. A dog bark is just a dog bark. But I say it's annoying. See the difference?
You put it through your thought filter.
Yeah.
It's
exactly.
filtered through the eye.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So the dog barking is dog barking. That's what's going on. That's just what is. And there's no problem. But when I have the thought that shouldn't be happening, or I have a feeling that's annoying, that dog barking is annoying.
It's a judgment.
Well, but I'm also, what's not seen is that I'm separate now. So this is not life. This is me and my life, and that dog is impinging on my life. I want to call it like a separatist perspective. The me lives as a separatist.
It divides.
Yeah.
I started talking. So the question I have is where is that me going to live this separate existence, this separate life, if there's just what is until I say different? So I say different, I have to create an alternate reality where it's going to be different, because what is just always what is, right? I can't change that just by saying I'm going to say it's different. But I do create a world. That's the I has the magic power to create an alternate reality, kind of off stage, separate. That's what it means to be separate. So if I'm going to be separate and I'm going to live in my world, that I say is different than what is, I have to live in a separate reality that really doesn't exist. And that's the trouble with the me. The me lives in a false world. Anyway.
Yeah. No, great. And what makes it, ironically, this is the ironic part, is that it's the falseness comes that the me takes it as completely real.
So you can see the trouble that's going to ensue. I see big problems ahead.
Well, it's constructed by conditioning.
Right, but why is the question on the table is, why does the me taking everything to be, why is that a problem? But just the activity of taking everything is only real. We're not seeing the emptiness. Emptiness is nowhere to be found. It's my life, and it feels real, and I have real problems, and it's really serious.
Is that the question?
Yeah.
'Cause it just sounds like a lot of static in one's frequency.
What makes it real? Why do
Identification? Identification with it?
I can't answer what makes it real, but what you were saying before is like, can't even remember what you were saying before, but what I was going to say was, sorry, one of those days, is that our stories are usually negative, right? So our thought process, whether we want to admit it or not, our mind chatter is actually quite negative, partly because it's meant to protect us. So I think that's why it's easy to create a reality that is negative or unjust or difficult, or why we view our lives as so hard. Because honestly, if I'm going to be completely honest, I think I'm a very positive person, but I can only access that we're all one and we all belong to each other when things are going well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can access it when things aren't going well, but it's really difficult. It's when things are negative that you have that separation, and it's so much easier to believe the negative. And I could come up with ideas of why that is, but it does seem to be that a lot of our chatter in our mind is to protect us and creates this negative defensive story and separates us.
Well, there's one magical ingredient that makes it real.
Me.
Ownership.
Yeah,
Ownership. Ownership of the story. Good or
it's mine.
bad. Yeah. Ownership. Notice that.
And that goes along with the positive stories just as well as the negative ones. So
True.
the freedom is really seeing the story.
Yeah, I find that I like to blame a lot of my suffering on my environment. That if this was happening, or if this person wasn't this way, that I could be me, and apparently the me that I have in my head, which I know that's a bad word, is much more happy and free and positive and loving. So I do that. I come up with these stories of like, oh, if this wasn't happening, if this wasn't in my environment, my surrounding, that I could be blissful and I could be with the flow.
Right.
Right.
Wait, I have something.
Yeah.
So notice this sense, right? And I'm completely, there's this sense of waiting. Like feel the me, because it's what's waiting for something to happen. Like it's very visceral.
And when you finally let go of that, everything is so warm and so lovely and so possible. And I know that, I do, but it's sometimes even knowing it can't necessarily get you there. It's like this place that you know exists, and finding it is very difficult sometimes. But not right now.
Well, one thing I want to say that could help you, even though it sounds like a horrible word to say in non-duality, right? But I'll just say what I found helpful. I'm going to say it helpful. There, I feel better. Is this thing about not knowing and not knowing how this moment is supposed to be. Like not knowing anything.
really resonated with that idea of ownership. I've been thinking lately, which might be a mistake, but you know, we're born and we get a lot, right? I mean, you don't really choose your parents. You don't choose your gender. You're born, you don't choose your race. You don't choose where on the earth, you know, your point of origin. You choose the time that you start. And you don't choose what happens around you. You generally, you know, don't choose the education. You don't choose the happenstance. You don't choose, you know, the negative or the positive things. And based on those things that happen, you know, you form this illusory identity. And around that comes a whole nother sequence of responses and more identity. And it snowballs down the hill. And where's the ownership in that? You know, how much of that did you choose? How much could you say that you choose? And if you chose it, you know, what was the point of origin of that choice? There's, how do you own that? You know, how do I own this stuff that happened and this place that I started?
Well, hey, Amy, it's a paradox, right? Because we could tell a story about 18 months old. We could tell a story how the personality, the me, set up shop around 18 months old for all of us. The me is developed by 18 months enough to know the difference between this and that, right? That's all it needs to know. I'm here, so I'm this, and then there's that. What is that, right? As a baby, that's what, you didn't think it, but that was the impression, was what is that? So information became your friend. So no one did anything wrong. All babies are innocent.
Well, yeah, I mean, I didn't mean to say anything about shame or wrong or
No, I was just
ownership or any
saying
of
how we
that.
get, no, I wasn't implying apologies if it sounded, I didn't mean that. I meant that's sort of how the simulation works.
And isn't it odd that that very first sort of knowledge of self-awareness is where it all starts to go wrong?
But it's ownerless. That's the rub, guys. That's the trick. The one who thinks they own the knowledge doesn't exist.
And we know that very clearly, just exactly because of what Charles was just pointing to. There's no place where Charles begins. The Charles, you know, the me Charles, because there's all this Charles that was just given, or that is given right here. How much of Charles' experience is just happening. And then, like, we can call that the ocean, right? And then there's this wave in the ocean that we call Charles. But where is that line that separates that wave from the ocean? We assume that it's real, and that's what makes this Charles a real separate thing. But then when we turn around and look, as Charles was just pointing out, we can't, everything is based on that. Everything that I know about who I am is based on this solid difference between me and everything else. But when we go and look for it, we can see that that was just assumed, imagined somehow through the conditioning. We just assumed, okay, this is a different thing. But this, again, now that we look, we see that is not a real assumption. It just isn't real. And that's the conflict.
Yeah.
we experience daily. And
Yeah.
that's actually what we're looking at here.
That separation that we think is real, that's what Dan is pointing at. And that's what we feel is real. We feel we're really separate. And the more real that is, the more cut off from life we feel. But again, paradox, nothing's cut off from life. It's just the realness, that belief in my solidity isn't true.
It makes me appreciate calls like this, so I got 12 faces, including this one called Charles, looking at me back from the screen, and a dog, 12 faces and a dog. And if everything is nothing but experience, and all these experiences are experiencing the same thread simultaneously, how beautiful is that, this discussion. I don't know if the dog appreciates it, but someone over there does.
He's fast asleep, but I'm listening.
So without you, there's just everything. So nothing really changes. There's still, your life is really in one way exactly the same as it always is. And in another way, it's completely different because you're not there with your questions and your concerns and your worries and your anxieties. And I like, Charles, that you picked up on the word ownership, because that's one of my favorites too, because that's always going to be the culprit. Everything is fine. I know it's unpleasant sometimes. I know uncomfortable feelings can arise and they're no picnic, but that's just what's happening. And it still doesn't make it yours. There's no denying it's appearing, and there's no denying that's your experience. So we're not denying that.
It just occurred to me that this I thing is a habit. Like you can see it, but you keep doing it, and this is what's happening for me. And I see it, but I keep catching myself identifying with it. And so there's this panning in and panning out that's going on all the time. But to me, it feels like a bad habit. The identification component.
I was going to say, the thing that I found helpful, to use that dirty word, is that it became clear to me that there's no past and there's no future. There's just this. There's just whatever's happening. Somehow that has to sock you in the guts. So I'll tell you why that's so freeing, is because the me always thinks there's other possibilities for this moment. Well, yeah, this happened, but this could have happened. Or, well, there's infinite possibilities in the future. You know, my future looks so bright with all these possibilities that no, there's just literally what's happening, which there's nothing else happening. So there's no possibility of anything else happening except what happens. So it's like complete, it's whole. There's no room for, there's literally just what's happening. So I found that really helpful. And I just wanted to share if that resonates with you, if somehow that there's just this. And it doesn't mean you have to like it. Because not liking hating the moment, that could be what's up, right? Hating the moment. The moment doesn't take it personally. Only the me can take anything personally. If anybody else has a comment or a question, feel free to jump in.
I was just thinking about what you said about separation, and I was sort of thinking about how we see our countries, your country and my country, in different states. I was listening to someone talk about the different states and how the borders that are there. There really is no border, but we imagine when we go from one state to another that we're actually going somewhere else, and it's very unconscious. And it's the same unconsciousness that we think about the I and me, of what we actually are. And when you actually think about it, they might put up a fence or a sign or a gate, but there's no separation between any of that. And it's just I think it felt like a really good analogy. And one other thing that I found helpful was to also look at that sense of something being good or positive, because I just picked up in the conversation, we're always happy to look at the negative and start to analyze that. But when you start to look at your positive judgment of something, oh, this is good, because I think we have a false idea that once you're there, wherever that there is to people, that everything's going to be rosy and nice and good all the time. And that's just not true.
No. Anything can arise at any time.
Yeah. So I found looking at my appreciation, or that good, this is good thing, was helpful, as well as looking at the negative part of it as well, rather than just let that go by and keep looking at the negative and thinking that that's got to go before everything's right.
Right. Oh, that one gets that. I have to get all my ducks in a row before I can be whole.
That just feeds the seeking.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you said that, Dan, because that's one of my, oh God, I'm going crazy tonight, pet peeves is no, people waiting. And they say, oh, I still feel like a me, Michael, so I guess I'm not there yet. Bullshit. Who cares? I have to get on my soapbox now. Nobody cares that you feel like a me.
So if we're talking about breaking the habit of listening to the me and going on its trip, we can look and see, what do I really want? Because the me has a plan, right? That's what it's doing with all of its knowledge and all of my, knowing about the past and hopes of the future and everything that I've built up. That me as the me, I'm using that to fulfill my plan, which is to make this uncomfortable situation I'm in better, right? I'm going to fix it. That's what the me is. The me has a plan to fix this. So if I want to break the habit, I can look and see, every moment, check in. Do I want to go with the me's plan? Is that something that I want to sign on to? Do I believe in the me's plan? Because that's what I'm doing when I'm, being the me. We've talked about this before. We're on the me train. Okay, so the alternative is just to be good with what's here without the me's doing anything to it. So we can check in. Which one do I really believe in? And that could be a beginning to breaking the habit.
Yeah, over here, it was just the sense that seeking, it just sort of hit me that seeking never leads anywhere.
But you have to really see that, until you see that, the me is going to get you back every time, of course, because that conditioning is so strong. But I think that, there comes a time when you say, been there, done that, I see the me for what it is.
I suspect that a lot of you that are here you're qualified. You're circling the drain. You know you're in the right building. Because this is the only message that has absolutely no hope. It's saying everything is already as it is, and only the imaginary me says otherwise. It turns out I'm the problem. Who knew? Right? You're always the last to know. No one tells you. Because without me, look how much more space. Like just feel right now, all the spaciousness without me thinking.
It's contradictory to think of all this as a self-improvement program.
Not.
And you don't want to do that. But nonetheless, getting back to the me train, I think to your point, Dan, the me train will go to a lot more interesting places if you leave the engineer's position or whatever, if you just let it flow, right? And that's kind of what, we do have to live our lives, right? So the question is kind of how do we do that?
No.
No?
You don't do that. You don't do anything.
Yeah, you don't have a stinking life.
Right, okay.
No,
You don't do it.
No, that's what has to get across your thick brain. Because otherwise you're separatist, right? That's gonna, oh, what happened? Oh, I went to the meeting and they separatist shamed me. No, it's perfectly fine. If that's what I'm saying is it doesn't matter if you feel separate, really. There's so much freedom in the acceptance of the separate feeling. It's mind-blowing because you would never think to just let it be. just go, yeah, that's how I'm feeling. I feel like a person. I feel separate. Okay.
I mean, I think what I was trying to express, perhaps I didn't do a very eloquent job, is, you know, now that we're in this monkey suit, what do we, that's what Ajashante calls it, I think, you know, crawling back in the monkey suit and living your life as if you don't exist. How do you navigate that?
But you already don't exist.
Right.
No, really, these words are coming out of emptiness and those words are coming out of emptiness. But you just have a belief that they're yours.
Nonetheless, I've got a job and you've got a job, and probably tomorrow interact with people, and there'll be things that these molecules do, and your attitude towards living will be greatly improved by the realization of this material. Illusory as it is.
Well, I know I was very attracted to it, but then there was like a twist at the end. Like the last thing is the me thinking it's realized. So that has to go too. And it's not easy.
Yeah, that's a big trip.
I think of the me as a contraction, and the phenomenal consciousness is a spaciousness. And I guess you're all familiar with Jack O'Keefe.
Mm-hmm.
She did I just listened to a 20-minute breakdown of phenomenal consciousness that she did, and it was really well done. So if you have time to check out her YouTube talk on phenomenal consciousness, it was a very good breakdown.
Hmm.
And it's
Well,
only 20 minutes.
I don't know if Jack O'Keefe or any would, but what's also being said here is that there's no source. I'm not saying this is coming from anywhere. I'm saying there's just this. However, it's appearing.
You know, I can put it in the chat. Let's see.
But there's a freedom in the seeing through of past and future. I can't emphasize that enough, because the me hopes are always going to lie in better. And as a result, this will seem insufficient every time. So better is a synonym for future, and future doesn't exist. There's just what's happened. It may get better, but somehow there's a peace without a past and a future. There's a peace because that urge that there could be something else, it's very depleting. It drains your energy.
Michael, are you saying that there's no source because everything comes out of nothing? Is that what you mean? Or what seems to be here comes out of nothing? Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's not even that it comes out of nothing.
Yeah, it's hard to speak about it, I know.
It's like the best I could say, it's like this is nothing something.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, Ron.
Hey, Corey.
Yay.
The current moment, I often think of as not good enough because I believe that something that happened in the past should have been different. And I like what you said, if that is, and I know it's insanity because it's an impossibility. It is whatever happened, happened. So that's, it's insane thinking, right? And I don't know if ever, most people do. Oh, if I had done this, this would happen. If I had done that, that would have, And it definitely robs the current moment by stating, well, the current moment can't be that good if you thought something else should have happened before that changed this moment,
No, I totally get you, Ron. But here's the thing. So a thought can arise. You can definitely have a feeling that you missed out. That was a really golden opportunity. So a thought and a feeling like that can totally arise. But again, it's just not yours.
I'd just like to say something that I had an experience where I wasn't happy about some aspect of my life. I can't remember what it was, but I had a thought, but it sort of came to me in the past when I've had that thought about I'm not happy with that aspect. I've immediately somehow gone to, well, I've got to do X, Y, Z to fix it, or I've got to do Y to fix it, or I need to listen a bit more to that spiritual teacher who is proposing or is putting forward ideas about how to deal with your suffering. And for this moment in time, something in me said, and I think it's because I've hung around in this non-dual, just listening to it, like listening to Tim Cliss, being part of this group, something said, don't worry about that. Just be with what it is. And it was a real lightness about it. There was a real relief that I don't have to fix myself up. I can just be as it is. Yeah. That's new for me, very new and very precious.
Very good. Thank you. Good. Thank you for sharing that, Faith.
Well, thank you for
one thing that's helped
allowing
me
me.
Is, sorry about that. Well, yeah, I was just going to say one thing that's kind of helped me, Faith and Ron, when that happens is, because whenever we focus on a thought, we're focusing on the content of that thought, as opposed to seeing it as just a thought. Like the content doesn't matter. I remember when I was a kid, they had Charlie Brown. Remember Charlie Brown? And whenever the parents spoke, it was wah, 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 wah. The content of the thought is just irrelevant. And I like to just see it as that's just a thought. And when I see it as that, I can just say, okay, I can kind of let that go by and not attach to it, right? Not identify with that. So that's helped me.
Good one.
I've had some help and help people and seen helping with people just deconstructing. What about is it that you think you're responsible for? What is it that you're owning? What is that? What is it that you would have done different? Well, I should have known, but you didn't. If you would have been a different person, if you had a different experience, then you can deconstruct what it is about what you think you are in that past moment, and if you bring down the elements to a fine enough level, you'll get to that. First of all, you're not there, right? Second of all, it's just a thought. Third of all, you have no control over that situation to be different than you were. In this past, it doesn't exist.
Well, for me, the sort of shortcut is, rather than paying attention to each individual thought one by one, for me, it was seeing the emptiness of everything. So everything is inherently empty. So there's no one inside those bodies.
So if I really see that, that pops the balloon of the me right away, because everything is already what it is. We can call it empty, but what that means is it's already, in other words, the thing that the me is trying to get in the future with all my strategy is already here as emptiness. And that completely, that changes the world. And that's kind of what we're talking about. But none of our me's believe that. I mean, that makes no sense at all to the me. But that's really what it, that's the
Can you
thing.
say that again, Dan?
No, I missed it, Charles,
The
sorry.
potential futures are already here as nothingness?
Well, okay, the me sees what it is, this is, and says, no, that's no good. And I'm gonna get, in other words, it projects into the future. The thing that I need is in the future. It's an experience that's gonna be in the future that is not right now. This experience is not good, but with my me machine and all of my knowledge and all of my actions and doing, I can get to that thing in the future. That's the me agenda, the logic. And it's the same for all of us. And we
Yeah,
can,
I got you now. Yeah.
yeah.
I thought you were taking time and space out of the equation. I was gonna get excited there.
Well, no, but I am, because it is out of the equation. The reality is the emptiness that's here, and it's not in time and space. But that's not interesting to the me, right? Anyway, maybe somebody else can pick this up and see if, Michael, you want to say something?
Yeah, there's no, this is another one that's really, you can't figure this out. So it either will, but time and timeless are not two.
Well, I said it last time. I think I'm quoting Rupert, is time is what infinity looks like when filtered through the mind. It's a Rupert quote. I like that one.
Rupert Sheldrake?
Spira. Rupert Spira.
Yeah, that's actually kind of an adaptation of what Plato said. So I think Plato said time is the moving image of eternity. In other words, time is what eternity looks like as movement. And we could say that also about all of our stories. The stories are really always just here, out of time. That's where we live. We don't really live in time. That's the whole point. But the story, the me lives in time. The me is in the middle of a story about me that happens in time. It's, again, this alternate reality. So, Michael, you want to?
All right. Maybe this will be a good one. We'll see.
Bring us back to Earth.
Oh, this is really, I've really enjoyed, I don't know what's gotten into me, but I've been enjoying everybody's sharings.
We started talking about emptiness and how the me is not interested in emptiness.
Right. Well, the me takes itself to be a thing. So of course it needs a thing. It needs an object, right? If I'm an object, I'm only interested in other objects. Come on. What is emptiness going to do for me? So it dismisses, but where's Alan? So Alan, I was thinking about your analogy about, so Alan did a really beautiful 4.5-minute video about the physical limits of athletes have been pretty much reached as far as what the body can do. But he talked about the mental aspect being unlimited. And I was thinking the same, Alan, about being a something versus nothing. And I think the same applies, because something is a limitation. But so if you want the most, we could say if you wanted to be the most greedy to get the most bang for your buck, you would actually want emptiness or nothing because it's unlimited. It's the most free. As something has boundaries, even knowledge, even these words, right? That's the problem with knowledge, is taking the boundlessness and it's putting it into a concept. So that's why if I have a head full of concepts that I'm believing, I don't feel free.
There's that great line in the Tao, to define it is to distort it. I mean, so anytime you start to put words on it, as you know, it limits it. It's like you start from the unlimited, right? The unlimited is already happening, going back to, I think, something Dan just said. You know, it's already happening. So if you add anything on top of that, even though it seems good, or I'm going to make things better, then that's where you can really limit stuff. And by the way, thank you for the back-to-back weeks of the props on the Art of Quiet.
Well,
Art of Quiet, everybody, on YouTube. The Art of Quiet, rated PG, parental guidance suggested.
I didn't know if Corey knew about it, so I had to mention it. It's really good. It's
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, Alice, I know Alice shot me a Facebook note. Thank you, Alice. And I know Dan has seen it.
Yeah. Highly recommended.
Any last comments or questions before we close out this evening?
Thank you, as always, to everybody.
I want to thank each and every one of you so much for coming tonight. It's such a nice surprise. Corey, big surprise.
Wow.
Diane, thank you so much for the donation last week. Really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for coming. I'll have this up on YouTube in the next 24 to 48 hours.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good to see everyone.
Thanks. Bye.